I have been playing through Hoenn a lot lately, so that got me thinking, for this week's compilation, why not compile my first Hoenn team, followed by some other ones I really enjoyed making years ago. With that said, I hope these Hoenn teams can provide you with some value. Enjoy!
For my starter Pokemon, I would usually pick Trico, considering that is my favorite Hoenn starter. For my Emerald playthrough though, I wanted to be a little different, so I picked Torchic instead. Around that time, I saw Maze Torchic evolve into Combuskin in the Pokemon anime, and then eventually saw it evolve into Blaziken. Seeing how awesome Maze Blaziken was, made me want to go pick it up for myself, so Torchic became my starter. Fun fact about Blaziken too, I used to love it, then I hated it again because of competitive, now I love it again. I have had such a love-hate relationship with this Pokemon, and I question why I ever disliked it. Disliking a Pokemon because it swept you in competitive isn't a real reason to dislike. Screw you, Crawdont. I've always thought this Pokemon was super cute, but I never really thought it was a great Pokemon to use in a team. But this time around, I decided to give Azumarill a go. I had 5 badges and I needed a Pokemon for Surf. I didn't have one at the time, and I just happened to run into a Marill and some grass near Mauville. From what I can remember, boom, it just pops up on my screen. My thought process said, why not? This looks like a fun Pokemon to use. So I wound up using it, and I really liked how cute Azumarill was, so it just kinda worked out. I will admit it wasn't the most solid Pokemon to use, but sometimes using Pokemon that aren't all that great are actually the most fun. The physical special split really made Azuma not all that appealing, but when the split was lifted, Azumarill got way better, and I love using this cute Aqua Rabbit in competitive nowadays. This team really does have a lot of diversity. Has anyone ever used a Grumpig on their team before? I never did until Pokemon Emerald 2005, and I will admit I never used one after. At the time, it just looked fun. It was an awesome Pokemon to use, and it got a lot of fun stats to play with. I literally just saw Spoink in the Jagged Pass and thought to myself, this Pokemon is so uncommon to use on a team. I fuck using it. This playthrough of Emerald, I just wanted to be different than my other friends playing the game. My buddy, however, had a level 100 Swampert. Yeah, dude, you're super common. At the time of my journey, I also wanted a second Pokemon that was different from an Alakazam, because I have used an Alakazam before in a Silver playthrough. Well, it was a Kadabra, and it pretty much soloed the entire game. I just wanted a fun second Pokemon to use, and Spoink popped up. Plus, it's a Spoink in the Hoenn anime, and it made me want to use it. The Pokemon anime has inspired me to use a lot of Pokemon, surprisingly. I never had the patience to evolve Trapinch into Vibrava and then Flygon after. To me, Flygon was one of the hardest Pokemon to train in the Hoenn games. Its level up moveset is complete garbage, and the only dragon move you get is Dragon Breath. Like, that's not the worst, but that's all I got until it evolved into Flygon, where I taught the Dragon Claw TM. I have always liked Flygon, I just never had the patience to train it because of how slow Dragon Pokemon were to train. But I sucked it up and wound up being super satisfied with the results. Flygon is a very underrated Dragon Pokemon. And yes, I'm gonna complain how it doesn't have a Mega because I would love for it to have a Mega Evolution. Even though 3 years later, I really don't think it's gonna happen at this point in time, guys. I thought I should have placed this Pokemon more towards the beginning of this video, but that's alright. The Pokemon on this list are in no particular order, which is pretty much okay. Mighty Anna was the Pokemon I had on my team. I don't know what it was, but I really wanted a dog that year in 2005. I saw Poochyena in the grass and I decided to capture it. It's such a super common Pokemon to use in a team, especially if you're a kid and that's the first Pokemon you see in the grass. It's not one of my favorite Pokemon, but I decided why not, the diversity's fun. It's not one of my favorite Pokemon, but I decided, hey, I wanted a dog, and Poochyena looks like it's gonna be the closest thing for me having one. I wanted a Pokemon that evolved early too, and Mighty Anna was a fun early evolved Pokemon to use. I got to level 18 right when I landed in Slateport, and that Pokemon did alright. Dark moves in this generation were special, so it was a rocky journey, but I made it work out. Blossom is easily one of my favorite grass Pokemon of all time. I wanted it on my team after I found out I could get a Sunstone from Moss Deep City. I knew you could get Blossom in Ruby and Sapphire, but I never knew I could get a Sunstone until I played Emerald. I have always liked Blossom since the Pokemon 2000 short, where they were dancing and having a good time. It's such a cute Pokemon with an optimistic approach to everything. It just dances everything away. I used Blossom though, and I had a fun time using it, especially against my rival where I shredded his Swampert. That quad weakness really came in handy. Such a cute and underrated Pokemon. Blossom is adorable.
So we'll get started by kicking the starter Pokemon to the curb. Because just saying, using any one of the 3 automatically makes it more likely that this team somehow has been used. You don't need to worry though, because we're going to replace the starter with the Wurmple. You can get it right when a Pokeball is in hand, so it's perfect. I decided on Beautifly as the Pokemon to use for this team as its starter, as it's obviously pretty bad, and I feel doesn't get used as much as Dustox does by most people. You'll need your Wurmple to evolve in the Silcoon, and if it doesn't, then you'll have to try again. However small it is, that can be a bit inconvenient. So in the context of this video, it helps work against people using a Beautifly. Though I'll admit, it isn't hard to just go get Silcoon in the Petalburg Forest. When you get Beautifly, you've got a nice little bug, and well, why don't we just look at its moveset and see exactly what it offers. So, you've got Beautifly, and it's using Giga Drain, Aerial Ace, Psychic, and Silverwind. It's not the worst moveset on the planet by any stretch, but it definitely would be nicer on a better Pokemon. There's no physical special split in these games too, so that should be thought about. So Giga Drain is going to be learned at level 38, and Silverwind a few levels before that at 34. Aerial Ace has to be learned via TM that you win from Winona. And then finally Psychic you can get at the Mauville Game Corner. Obviously, you'll need money to get it, but it's well worth said cash. That's it. And while Beautifly might be the most likely to end up on a team, I still maintain the thought that most people steer away from ever putting it on their team. It's also the most boring one on the team, quite frankly, so I think I'm gonna move on. So, speaking of hunting down some Pokemon in the Petalburg Forest, the next one you're gonna look for is Slackoth. It'll be a little time consuming getting it, but once you do, you'll work towards evolutions at both level 18 and 36, so you end up with Slacking. It's easily one of the strongest Pokemon in the franchise up to this point, but that Truant ability is so detrimental. The fact that you can never attack 2 turns in a row is ludicrous, and it's definitely enough to keep it off of many people's teams. It doesn't matter how strong it is or how it can take hits, some people just struggle to look beyond how annoying that ability is. Plus, what self-respecting trainer would ever try to run Beautifly and Slacking on the same team together to begin with? That's just asinine. Though, even then, 160 base attack and 100 speed is probably the sort of stat line that can make people look past a bad ability. So I guess that while Slacking is probably lesser used than many Pokemon, it's still probably one of the more used Pokemon we'll have on the team today. Strength, Brick Break, Feint Attack, and Return are the moves I have chosen for Slacking. Strength is an HM you get in the Rust Turf Tunnel after you smash the rocks away. It's nice for stab, and probably one of the best offensive uses of the HM. Then Brick Break is gotten long down the line in the game when you're in Pseudopolis City. I suppose Rock Smash is probably the best move in its place. Then we've got Feint Attack learned at level 19, and Return, which is a TM you're given in Fall Arbor Town after you return the meteorite that your version's evil team stole. So again, I think people look away from Slacking a bit due to this Truant ability. But the truth is, there are people who do still use it, and it's probably used more often than I give credit for. For example, Chugga Conroy in his Pokemon Emerald playthrough. So far though, I think we definitely have the making of a team that's never used. So let's just go ahead and seal this team's fate, shall we? The next Pokemon is nearly impossible to get, with the only ones actually putting in on their team being people who were willing to spend hours upon hours indulging in many steps and then a tedious bit of fishing. You already know. Milotic is coming through with its great power to really drive home our topic of the day. You need to head to Route 119 and do a full check of the entire route trying to get Feebas to come up, as it's available in only 6 of the many tiles of water. And they're all random. You're going to have nearly an impossible time finding this damn thing. And then when it comes to evolving it, oh man. You've got to get its beauty to the max stat and then level it up. And that involves feeding it many of the correct Pokeblocks. You've got to jump through so many intricate and annoying hoops. But finally, you'll have a Milotic. Now, to be fair, some people love that challenge. They're going to go out of their way to try and put Milotic on their team, specifically because it is so stupid hard. But I feel that just halfway through this team already, the odds of anyone using this one are less than 1%. So Milotic has got Surf, Waterfall, Ice Beam, and Toxic. Surf is obtained after beating Norman. Waterfall is around when you earn the 8th badge, then Ice Beam is available either from the abandoned shipwreckage or the Mauville Game Corner. Finally, we've got Toxic, a TM in the Fiery Path if you have access to Strength. It's a super nice moveset that gets the most out of Milotic's strengths. But like I said earlier, this thing sucks to get. And just served as the perfect water type for us. I actually originally was going to use Kingdra on the team, but Milotic just fits the bill too well. Let's move into the second half of the team, which is just going to be a bunch of random Pokemon that guarantee you've never used this one. We'll start with Camerupt, available as a Numel on Route 112. You catch it, evolve it at level 33, and that's it. I think the reason Camerupt probably isn't used as much is because a lot of people choose Swampert or Blaziken as starters, and either one sort of makes Camerupt unnecessary. Now, let's go to the moveset. Now, Camerupt has Flamethrower, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Takedown for its moveset today. Flamethrower can be learned at level 41, and Earthquake at level 35. That is if you wait to evolve Numel until then. I think it's sort of worth it, so that's what I would do if I were using this team. Then Rock Slide is going to have to be heart scaled back on in Fall Arbor Town, as Camerupt would normally learn it at level 33, but I believe if you wait to evolve it, you won't be able to learn it then. I don't know that for sure though, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Finally, we've got Takedown, learned at level 29. So, like I said before, I think Camerupt is less used by trainers who play because of the starter they use. When you have either the fire or ground typing covered already, why choose to use Camerupt over Torkoal or maybe Ninetales if you're going to double up? I know it might be a reason you guys would push back on, but I mean hey, it falls right in with this topic. Next, we have Absol, a popular Pokemon that honestly I just felt like including on here. I'm already so sure that there's no chance that this team has been replicated, that I just decided on 2 random Pokemon that I wanted to just spotlight today. So Absol is found on Route 120, right outside of Fortree City. It just hangs around and you can catch it. And now you'll have a reminder of your emo teenage years around you at all times. It's probably used a fair amount by people, but hey, like I said, who has ever tried pairing it with the 4 other Pokemon? Time to bust out that moveset. Absol has Bite, Fire Blast, Thunder, and Blizzard. That's right, a moveset of coverage. Bite is like the best dark type move it gets unfortunately, learned at level 24. Then for the 3 coverage TMs, you can just go and get them from the Lilycove department store, and boom, you've got the moveset. And no, this video is not sponsored by the Lilycove department store, I can promise you that. So, cut my life into pieces, this is my last resort. Suffocation. No, I'm kidding. I will never do that again, my bad. Absol isn't heading to the Warp Tour this year, guys, and instead, it's going to join us on this team that nobody has ever used. So, let's wrap the team up with Muck, which some people probably even forgot is in Hoenn, honestly. Grammar just stinks up the fiery path, and you have to wait until level 38 for it to evolve. I don't have a good reason for including Muck on the team today, honestly. When I looked at the other 5 Pokemon on this team, I just felt like Muck really fit well with them, and was probably so obscure in the grand scheme of things in the region that it would be a final stamp on stuff. So let's just look at our final moveset. Sludge Bomb, Minimize, Acid Armor, and Rock Smash is the final moveset today. Muck uses Sludge Bomb for nice stab damage, and learns it at level 47. Then Minimize is learned at level 19, and Acid Armor at level 34. I wanted to make Muck a little annoying, so I figured using moves that boost its defenses and evasion would be great. Finally, I just decided to go with Rock Smash just in case you run into something that Sludge Bomb can't do much against. It's not exactly the most coverage-filled moveset, but it definitely can learn some moves. So there you have it, our finalized team of Beautifly, Slaking, Milotic, Camerupt, Absol, and Muck. I think we actually managed to top the Johto team, as I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10 on the nobody has used this scale. It's just not the kind of team I can believe anyone trying to convince me of having used. There's no starter, there is an annoying Pokemon like Slaking, a very difficult to obtain Pokemon in Milotic, and then a bunch of just random monsters that have better options than them out there. That's it though. Howdy folks, and welcome to possibly the last segment of this series. We've came a long way across the generations of teams that you've never used before, and the last Johto team that was created, I would say is probably the most unique one I have ever made. Today though, however, we found our way over to the 7.8 games out of 10, the Hoenn remakes of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. We have done Hoenn before, but it was for the original games of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. With Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire as our base, we now have the physical special split. I wonder how different the team will be with these changes. We've got some pretty unique options that will definitely throw you guys for a loop. It's not a worst team by any means, but it will definitely take you all for a ride. I can also safely say no one will ever make the claim they've used this team, because we got some heat, but also some way out in left field picks alongside the heat, if that makes sense. Rather than talk about it, allow me to showcase it. Also, Mystic Reads and shorts. You guys know the routine. Alrighty, so last time on the Hoenn team, I threw you guys Beautifly. Well, this time we're going in a similar direction, except with a Pokemon that has a 1% encounter rate. And no, it's not Ralts, for all you Gardevoir haters out there. It's Surskit. Who in their right mind would drop their starter for this? Before you comment and tell me so-and-so did a challenge video with this, I said right mind. Those people have balls of steel and a lot of patience, which I don't have. But Surskit can be found on Route 2 with the 1% encounter rate, and you're stuck with it until level 22. The fact of the matter is this. The amount of time it takes to get this Mon is a huge turnoff for a lot of people, especially because I really don't see a lot of people using Masquerain in the first place. But that doesn't mean people haven't used it. I don't see bug types being used all that often in Hoenn regardless anyway. And I feel if people were to use a bug type, Heracross would obviously be the one. For a moveset on Masquerain, we have Quiver Dance, Bug Buzz / Silverwind, Air Slash, and Shadow Ball. For starters, I just want to say, this moveset is pretty stacked. Quiver Dance and Bug Buzz can be relearned via Mover Learner, so be sure to get some heart skills. Or you can wait till level 42 for Bug Buzz and 52 for Quiver Dance. Silverwind can also be another fun option if you like the chance of getting a stat increase. That can be learned at level 32. Air Slash can be learned at level 38, and the Shadow Ball TM can be found at Mount Pyre. Also, at level 17, Surskit will get access to Bubble Beam, so that will be handy for Roxanne. Up second is a version-exclusive Pokemon being Shiftry. If you're playing Alpha Sapphire, you're out of luck, because C-Dot is only available in Omega Ruby. So you're gonna have to play Omega Ruby, or you're gonna have to trade one over to your Alpha Sapphire copy. If you are playing Omega Ruby though, the encounter rate for C-Dot on Route 102 is still an 8% rate of finding one. So not only will you be trying to find a Surskit with a 1% encounter rate, now you gotta find this Acorn too. I will say though, ORAS did some justice to the Shiftry line, because now it has access to some physical grass and dark type attacks, making it a much better choice than it was in Generation 3. C-Dot can evolve in the Nuzleaf at level 14, and then you'll learn some pretty good attacks via level up. You can pretty much choose to evolve it in the Shiftry whenever you want, however. But you will need a Leaf Stone. You can find a Leaf Stone on Route 119 close to Fortree City by surfing down a certain path. Shiftry's moveset will include Leaf Blade, Feint Attack, Aerial Ace, and Low Sweep. I was gonna choose X-Scissor for a piece of coverage, but it's so late in the game that I figured it was a waste. So we're going with these instead. Anywho, Leaf Blade can be learned as a Nuzleaf at level 28, and Feint Attack is learned at level 31. Both Aerial Ace and Low Sweep can be purchased from the Mauville Pokemart for 10k Pokédollars each. This is actually a pretty good moveset for Shiftry, all things considered. Not to mention Low Sweep drops the speed of your opponent by one stage, so that may come in handy from time to time. At the halfway point of the team, we actually have a repeating member from the original Hoenn team being Slacking. I figured throwing a repeat on here wouldn't be all that obvious, so I figured this scheme could work. Now, as we all know, Slacking has some incredibly deadly stats, but they come with a major price to pay. Truant. Oh, and would you look at this? Slackoth only has a 2% encounter rate. By now, you guys must be getting pretty annoyed, and that's great, because this further proves you haven't used this team. Slackoth also starts with Truant, so right off the bat, you'll also have to deal with that. Once you've found Slackoth, it evolves into Vigoroth at level 18, so at least for a little while, Truant will be gone. Then at level 36, Vigoroth will evolve into Slacking. Let's take a look at those moves though, shall we? Strength, Play Rough, Earthquake and Low Sweep. Gen 6 gave this Sting more coverage access. You'll love to see it. Strength can be given to you by your rival after defeating Watson and making your way past the Rock Smash rocks towards Route 111. For Play Rough, it can be learned at level 38 as a slack off, and I challenge you to do this, as it will be very annoying to have a slack off all the way at that point in the game. However, for those who don't like the idea of waiting that long to evolve your slack off, don't worry, I'll throw you a bone. Teach it Shadow Claw instead. The TM for that can be found in Granite Cave after you've obtained the Mach Bike, which is pretty early on all things considered, and you'll still be able to evolve your Slack Off at the proper levels. Next, we have Earthquake, and that can be found in the Seafloor Cavern. Lastly, there's Low Sweep, which I already mentioned previously can be bought at the Mauville Pokemart for 10,000 Pokédollars. Starting the second half of the team is where I know now this team has definitely never been used. We have a pretty great normal type with Slacking, which I would say is used quite a bit, even with Truant. There is a possibility that you guys could have used Slacking in tandem with Masquerain and Shiftry. However, now, there is no way you've used this team. Absolutely no way, no how. Why? Because we got Delcatty. Being straight up, there is no way you're using Delcatty and Slacking on the same team. The crappiest normal type in Hoenn with one of the best ones. If you say you've used this team, I'm calling your bluff right now. I don't need to give a rundown of how crappy Delcatty is, but I can tell you where to find Skitty and the Moonstone to evolve it. Skitty can be found on Route 116 with the 2% encounter rate. I'll bet you're loving these rare encounters, aren't you? Then the Moonstone can be found at Meteor Falls. Yeah, there's no way you've used this team so far. I'm gonna say it again. Delcatty's moveset consists of Facade/Return, Play Rough, Dig, and Thunderwave. I would suggest using the Return team on it, because it's gonna need all the offensive power it can get. You could use this on Slacking, but with all the offensive power it has, I deem it unnecessary. Plus, you need Strength. Play Rough can be learned at level 46. Actually, guys, I realized Skitty learns Play Rough at level 46, not Delcatty. Wild Charge can be a move that can replace Play Rough though. The Wild Charge TM can be found in the Safari Zone. The TM for Dig can be found from the Fossil Maniac's little brother, and the Thunderwave TM can be bought from the marketplace in Slateport City. So at this point in time, like I said, you have not used this team. But if for whatever reason you somehow have, it'd be a miracle if you did. Now, here's where I know for a fact you haven't. Up next is Golem. Not everyone has access to Trait Evolution, nor does anyone want to go through the process. On top of the 4 Mons I just mentioned, a Trait Evolution would definitely fit into this trope of not everyone has used this. Golem isn't the greatest Pokemon, but it's not the worst. And Geodude can be found pretty dang early at the Granite Cave. Once you've captured Geodude, it evolves into Graveler at level 25, and from there, that can be evolved into Golem straight away. With Golem though, I don't think a lot of people are going to use it, because not only is it a Trait Evolution, but there are also other ground type options to use. I can name a few right now: Swampert, Flygon, or Donphan. Like I said, Golem isn't a terrible Pokemon, especially on the in-game front. Early game accessibility with Geodude helps its case a lot. In fact, you'll actually have it for Watson, which is one of the main reasons why you should have a ground type in the first place. Moveset-wise, we've got Earthquake, any kind of rock type move really, Heavy Slam, and I guess Rock Polish could be fun. Earthquake I've already mentioned where to get. For rock type stab, you get a few via level up, but the 2 I recommend are obviously Rock Slide and Stone Edge. Rock Slide can be found as a TM on Route 134 next to Pacific Town after going through the Water Surf Maze, and Stone Edge can be bought as a TM from the Lily Cove department store. Heavy Slam can be move relearned. The last Pokemon on the team is probably one of the most forgotten water Pokemon in existence: Seaking. Seaking is the perfect choice to wrap up this team. I never see anyone using Seaking, and with that aspect, it's perfect to add to a team of Pokemon that nobody uses. It's a physical attacking water type with a decent attack stat, but not so great speed. But for in-game, it's passable. Goldeen can be found on Route 102 using the Good Rod with a 35% encounter rate. Luckily, it can be found at level 25 and will evolve at level 33, which isn't that long. For Seaking's moveset, I have to say it's not that bad. Waterfall, Mega Horn, Poison Jab, and Ice Beam. I wish Sea King had a physical ice move, but it is what it is, and we gotta do the best with what we got. Waterfall can be learned via level up at level 32, and that is the best stab attack Sea King can get access to. Mega Horn and Poison Jab can both be move relearned, and are honestly some pretty good pieces of coverage. Lastly is Ice Beam, which can be found via diving under the abandoned ship. So Sea King, while not being the best water-type Pokemon to use in Hoenn, with this moveset, it can be bearable. We're back again with another underrated team video, except I decided on a different title change. This team is technically the second best team, or the silver medal team, so I thought the title would be fitting. But anywho, today we find ourselves back in the region of Hoenn. Hoenn has a pretty interesting selection of Pokemon to use. Some I've actually slept on, especially for the newer gens. This Hoenn run is going to capture both the originals and the remix though. The decks and locations are pretty much the same. The only real difference is the physical special split. Due to that, some of the mons I pick for this team will obviously be better in Gen 6, but they are still viable for a Gen 3 run. This team will be oriented more for ORAS, but it can still work for Gen 3. So with that, other than Mystic Reads, let's begin. So in this segment, I was actually contemplating on whether or not I wanted to use Sceptile. I came to the conclusion, however, that we can get a grass typing and a great secondary typing in one. So I dismissed it. We'll get into that in just a sec though. For the first mon entering this team, we of course have a flyer. Now, I am aware I've used Swellow a few times on a best team, but I still feel I never gave it enough credit despite that. If you utilize Swellow's Guts capabilities, this regional bird can decimate anything in its path. Even without Guts though, it's still not bad. But with Guts, the attack stat on Swellow becomes enormous. Plus, you get it right at the beginning of the game, and it evolves fairly quick at level 22. If you bring Swellow with Guts in the Elite Four, just slam him with Facade, and that damage will rack up. You don't technically need a flyer for ORAS, but Swellow is still fantastic nonetheless, and it will serve as the filler normal type that I usually put on these teams. For Swellow's moveset, clearly we're going to be using Facade alongside Aerial Ace, Steel Wing, and Return. Facade can be bought at the Mauville Pokemart for 10k Pokédollars. Aerial Ace can be learned via level up at 21, Steel Wing can be given to you by Steven after meeting him in Granite Cave, and Return can be given to you by an NPC in Pacific Town by showing a Pokemon that is really friendly to you. So that grass Pokemon I mentioned earlier with the great secondary typing is Breloom. Breloom, I've honestly slept on, and I've always chosen Hariyama over it. Now that I think about it, Hariyama should technically be here, and Breloom should be on the best team. Maybe a best team for ORAS Remastered is necessary. It's just better. It has the grass type, Mach Punch hits pretty hard with that base 130 physical attack, in Gen 6 it gets Seed Bomb, etc. In Generation 3, it still works very well as just a fighting type though, so don't really worry about the grass type being special. Despite the grass typing, I'm still picking it because it's a great fighting type. It sucks Technician is a hidden ability, because if it was easier accessible for a playthrough, it would decimate even more, especially with Mach Punch. You could realistically hunt for a hidden ability Shroomish, but that's entirely up to you. With or without it, Breloom will perform well for in-game. Oh, and you can find Shroomish in Petalburg Woods, and it evolves into Breloom at level 23. For Breloom's moveset, I'm gonna go with Mach Punch, Seed Bomb, Sky Uppercut, and Rock Slide. Mach Punch can be learned at level 23, Seed Bomb can be learned at level 44, Sky Uppercut can be learned at level 39, and Rock Slide can be found as a TM on Route 32 and the Surfing Water Maze next to Pacific Town. In Gen 3, just use whatever grass type you got available. Giga Drain is probably the best option you got, and instead of Rock Slide, you can go with Rock Tomb for a speed drop. That can be earned from Roxanne. Up next is a veteran of this second best team series, being Kadabra. I've mentioned how good Kadabra is in the last two videos I've done in this series, so not a lot has changed. Abra can also be found relatively early like previous gens, being obtainable in Granite Cave. Have fun with Teleport though. 105 speed and 120 special attack is pretty deadly for a non-fully evolved Pokemon, as I always say. Also, unlike previous gens where Kadabra's pool is a little more shallow, in Gen 6 it does improve by a bit. You'll see shortly in the moveset. Other than that though, just spamming Psychic will usually get you the same result. And coverage isn't everything if you have an extremely high special attack stat with Psychic. I just like to make sure all ends are covered, which you will see in Kadabra's moveset. For Kadabra's moveset, we got Psychic, Shadow Ball, Calm Mind, and Dazzling Gleam. Psychic is obviously going to be the main power for Kadabra, being learned at level 38. Of course, use any earlier learned Psychic moves until then. Shadow Ball will be great for coverage, and that can be found at Mount Pyre. Calm Mind can be earned as a TM by defeating Tate and Liza, and Dazzling Gleam can be given to you by a female NPC near the Berrymaster's house. If you're playing Gen 3, sub out Dazzling Gleam for Thief, and Shadow Ball for Shockwave. Unless you're fine with using Kadabra's base 35 attack stat. At the second half of the team, we have a pretty dope water type that I don't really talk about a lot actually. Plus, we get 2 great typings in one, with water and dark. Sharpedo is insanely underrated, even in Gen 3. Regardless of if the water and dark type are special in this gen, base 95 special attack and speed is still pretty good to work with nonetheless. If you're playing Gen 6 though, you get to utilize that 120 physical attack stat. Carvana can be caught on Route 118 using the Good Rod. It will then evolve into Sharpedo at level 30. The dark typing on this thing is great, because now we got something for Phoebe and Tate and Liza. I usually use Absol for the dark type slot, but Sharpedo is actually better in my opinion. Priority with Aquajet, Assurance at level 15, Ice Fang at level 25, and Surf upon getting it is definitely pretty good. But with that said, let's get into that moveset though. Sharpedo's moveset is going to consist of Surf/Waterfall, Crunch, Ice Fang, and Earthquake. Surf and Waterfall can both be obtained at their respective spots in the story. Crunch can be learned at level 40, Ice Fang, like I mentioned earlier, can be learned at level 25, and Earthquake can be found as a TM in the Seafloor Cavern. For Gen 3, simply swap out Ice Fang for either Ice Beam or Blizzard. Honestly, you can do that for Gen 6 too if you want. Now for our electric type. Usually I pick Manectric, but today we do have something slower. But it's no strangers to my vids being Magneton. Magneton comes equipped with the Steel Electric type, and it's got some power backed behind it. 120 base special attack is nothing to sneeze at, and even if you don't take into consideration its Steel typing usage in Gen 3, it's still fine as just an Electric type. Gen 6 does allow it for better Steel type moves, and of course the physical special split being abolished. But even then, Thunderbolt is really all that's needed for both gens. Magnemite can be caught at New Mauville right after getting access to Surf. It then evolves into Magneton at level 30. Now, if you are playing Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I do believe it is possible to get Magnezone pre-post game. According to some comments I read on how to evolve Magneton into Magnezone, you just need to level it up once in New Mauville. But if this is wrong, Magneton will still suffice. For a moveset, like I said, all you really need is Thunderbolt. For Gen 6, use Mirror Shot and Tri-Attack. The rest, I leave up to you guys. For Gen 3, that also applies. Good luck. Lastly, we have our ground type, and this is going to be one of those cases where we do some switching around. Firstly, capture Geodude in Granite Cave. That will be useful for Watson, and if it evolves into Graveler in the process, cool. 100 base defense on Geodude should still be good enough, but if you want that extra base 15 defense and HP on Graveler, it wouldn't hurt. Breloom should still be able to handle Magneton though with Mach Punch if things get dicey. After beating Watson, swap it out for Numel. Honestly, you could keep Graveler, but I think Camerupt is more fun to use with that fire typing, and it's got some pretty sweet special attack and physical attack. Numel can be found on Route 112 after defeating Watson. It sucks you can't get it earlier, or else a swapping wouldn't need to take place. Rock Smash is indeed poopy. You will have to wait a tad to evolve Numel into Camerupt, but it's not the worst timing in the world. Camerupt is slow, but it's underrated, especially for in-game. The speed is the reason why I held back from using it, but this is the perfect time to use it for an underrated team. It's also got a pretty decent level up set too for both games. The moveset we're going for on our last Pokemon is going to be Lava Plume, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Curse. Lava Plume can be learned at level 22. Earthquake can be learned via level up as well. Or, if you're not level 46 by then, the TM for it is also available at the spot I mentioned earlier. Rock Slide can be learned at level 33, and Curse can be learned at level 29. All things considered, this moveset is really good for something that can be learned via level up. For Gen 3 too, the moveset is still relatively the same, except Flamethrower can be bought at the Mauville Game Corner, Earthquake can be learned at level 37, and Rock Slide can also be learned again at level 33. I guess instead of running Curse, you could use Toxic for Gen 3. The TM for that can be found in the Fiery Path after obtaining Strength. Well, that pretty much wraps up the second best team for Hoenn. All things considered, I've slept on these Pokemon for quite a while, and to be honest, I kinda wish I would have done a best team for ORAS remastered with some of these Mons on here. But I'm not gonna bother with that, because I've already got way too many remastered best teams.